because they paid Joe Burrow early and they're now afraid of what the roster is going to look like around that contract, they let a lot of pivotal defensive pieces walk. And that's why I think they're bad. I don't know if it's a coordinator issue. As a Chiefs fan, I hope they fire Big Lou because that's the one team and the one defensive coordinator that has had Patrick Mahomes' number every single year.
Because of a salary cap, really no team can have it all, right? No team can have it all. You got to give and take, accept some downfall in order for some positive return. Do you think that it is more likely on the offensive side of the ball to have cheap personnel and a great OC to let that side of the football work while spend money on your team on the defensive side of the ball?
Yes.
Or flip-flop? So that's what you think.
I think that, and here's the key, though. Especially if you're paying your quarterback upwards of $55 million a year, your quarterback has to at least be a top 3 guy in his conference. He has to be.
He has to be to accomplish what?
If you're paying your quarterback $55+ million a year and you're looking to go cheaper on offense around said quarterback, so you're giving him less weapons, less stuff to work with, which is not what the Bengals are going to be doing because Joe Burrow needs a guy like Ja'Marr Chase and a T. Higgins to be successful. And that's not a knock on him. Those guys are really good at football. It helps him a lot. He has to be a top 3 quarterback in his conference because he has to be the difference maker that gets you over the hump. And CCAT, I asked you here today, December 10th. What, December 10th?
Yeah.
It's getting late. December 10th, 2024, as we sit here today, following a big performance from Joe Burrow where he has, now I think he leads the league in passing yards, passing touchdowns, and every other statistical category when it comes to throwing the ball around. Is Joe Burrow a top 3 quarterback in his conference?
In his conference, obviously, Mahomes won, Lamar, and Josh Allen. So it's crowded up top. Yeah.
And that's the problem. So the Bengals find themselves in an unenviable position.
But, is it an arbitrary number just because he happens to fall in the 4th spot? Because you say you have to be a top 4 quarterback in the conference?
You could. But the real reason why I say 3 is because there's only so many spots at the top, right? There's only so many guys that can miss the AFC Championship game year in and year out. How many years can you count on Josh Allen, Lamar, like 2 of those top 3 guys not making the conference championship game?
It's probably not going to happen.
It's hard. It's
one of those
very
guys.
Tough.
It is crowded.
It's crowded, and that's why I say top 3. I didn't do that purposely to leave Joe Burrow out. Honestly, I could have said top 2, and then we could be fighting back and forth on who between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. What I mean is, the reason why I say top 3 is because if you have to pay Joe Burrow and you're going to go cheap around him, you need Joe Burrow to be the ceiling raiser as well as the floor raiser. And I do believe he's an extreme big floor raiser. He also is a ceiling raiser as well, but not to the extent of Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, or Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs were able to trade away Tyreek Hill because they knew what Mahomes could be without him. The Bills were able to trade away Stephon Diggs because they knew what Josh Allen could be without him. The Ravens have been able to get away with 5 straight years of not having a true X receiver because they know what Lamar Jackson can be without one. We haven't seen Joe Burrow without a dominant outside receiver. Matter of fact, we ain't seen him without 2 dominant outside receivers in his NFL career. And it still has resulted in only 1 Super Bowl appearance, a bunch of seasons that have been riddled with injuries or taking too many sacks. And also, again, he's the 4th best quarterback in his conference. And you can argue, out of all of those quarterbacks, offensively at least, he's been set up with the best situation year after year. With the weapons, with the running backs that he's had in the past as well. The continuity being in the same system, in the same offense. It's hard to argue against that, but there's a ceiling. There's a cement ceiling above Joe Burrow's head, and it goes by the name of Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen. And if you have to pay Burrow and you have to pay Chase, there ain't going to be too much money left to fill out the rest of that roster. And then year after year, we're going to hear the same BS rhetoric. Oh, Joe Burrow's the best player in the league. He's the MVP. He has all the numbers. Blame his defense. Blame his defense. Well, there's a reason why they had to let all those people walk, and it's because they had to pay Joe Burrow a ton of money. Like, both can be true. I think Joe Burrow is a great quarterback. I just don't think he's those guys.
I also think, and bear with me here, but because he has a bad defense, he has great numbers.
That too. It helps.
Like, when you need to score 40, your offense is going to try to score 40. If your defense is holding teams to 13 points, why are they going to air the football turnovers? Like, that's just simple football. that explains those numbers. That's why Matt Stafford is going to set NFL records before he is through with his career, because he was on a bunch of bad Detroit Lion football teams.
Yes, 100%. And again, anybody that wants to refute that is just defending what they hold to be true. It's more confirmation bias. It's more just like, oh, I want to hold up and hoist up how good Joe Burrow is. Nobody thinks Joe Burrow stinks. Nobody even thinks he's average. Everybody thinks he's a good quarterback. But again, what does that get you? 5-8 with Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins. Like, it just
So is this one of those Vikings years for the Bengals that we've talked about, how they've lost of water? They won last night. Let's get that.
They did win last night.
They won last night.
But they're lost
not a playoff
in the
team.
negotiation room because they're going to have to pay Ja'Marr. But yeah.
Yes. Is this one of those lost years for the Bengals where maybe we look at this team next year and they win those one-score games and all of a sudden it's a little bit different?
I mean,
it depends if they sign Ja'Marr Chase.
I was about to say they're going to need Ja'Marr Chase back, but even if they bring Ja'Marr Chase back, right? In order to bring Ja'Marr Chase back, and he'll be back next year because he is under contract. He does have one more year left, his fifth-year option. They accepted it already, so he'll be back next year. The question is, do you trade him because you can't sign him in the next offseason? Do you have any confidence? Because what held this team back this year?
And what's going to change?
Same thing's going to be there next year.
And what's going to change? Yeah, exactly. What held him back both internally with the Bengals and externally with all of the other contenders in the AFC?
Who do you have more faith in, the Chargers or the Bengals next year? I think the Chargers get better.
Yeah, I give a franchise more time with Jim Harbaugh where that culture is even more set in. And you got to imagine they're going to add at least one or two weapons to help Justin Herbert.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah, I do have more confidence in the Chargers playing and winning a playoff game next year, more so than I do the Bengals.
Not only will the Bengals miss the playoffs this year, they're likely going to miss the playoffs next year too. It's more likely than not they miss the playoffs next year as well, because as I look at the contenders in the AFC, look at the playoff race right now. The Bills ain't going to be on the outside looking in. The Chiefs ain't going to be on the outside looking in. The Texans are easily going to win their division. They won't be on the outside looking in. You betting against Mike Tomlin and the Steelers? Are you going to bet against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens? Those are locks to make the playoffs next year. And so now if you are the Bengals, you're fighting against the Chargers, who will get better next year, the Broncos, who will get better next year, the Dolphins, who should be better next year, the Colts, who likely will be a little bit better next year. And guess what? All of those teams are better than you this year.
Yeah.
They're in a terrible situation. The Bengals are cooked. And if you would have at least signed Ja'Marr Chase this past season for a more affordable contract, I would feel a little more optimistic about your outlook. But right now, I would hate to be in that situation. Unenviable. We got Mike Tannenbaum coming on the other side. He's a former NFL GM. Maybe he can clean up to us how the Bengals can get themselves out of what seems like a bottomless hole in the AFC.
But then again, they do have the one answer that 20 other teams have not found. The quarterback, right?
That's true.
It always seems to be, whether you believe it or not, a crapshoot when it comes to the draft. They got their guy.
The problem is, though, they're in a conference full of those guys. Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson.
Question mark.
I'm just saying.
You can't say his name with those names.
All right, you know what? The Colts are 6-7 right now, C-Cat.
Yeah, they won a bunch of two of those games, right? Two of those games with Joe Flacco.
Sure. They would have won. They were worse with Joe Flacco. The offense was worse statistically with Joe Flacco than it was with Anthony Richardson. Yeah, sure. Anthony Richardson might not be that guy, but at least that's the guy that they're going to roll out next year with Shane Steichen, a good quarterbacks coach. Drake May, the Patriots believe they have their guy. That's a conference full of teams that think they have their guy or do definitively have their guy. The Bengals do have their guy. You're right. That's great. Guess what? Your guy might not be good enough, and you already paid him $55+ million, and he is his success has been inextricably attached to a man that's going to cost you another $35 million a year. And it's your fault you didn't get him at 31 or 32. Every dollar counts when you're trying to make up for that many holes on the defensive side of the ball.